Today is a special podcast. I'm going to give you a little peek into the Tartle Tech podcast, but this is about leadership. In fact, I interviewed Ryan Hawk. He is the host of the Learning Leader Show. He's recorded more than 500 episodes over the past 8 years. Forbes magazine called the Learning Leader Show the most dynamic leadership podcast around. Inc. magazine said it's one of the 5 podcasts to make you a smarter leader. And Apple Podcast said it's an all-time bestseller in 2020 and 2021. And there's a book you have to get, his second book. It's called The Pursuit of Excellence, The Uncommon Behaviors of the World's Most Productive Achievers. And we got into this, and we got into it really heavy, an hour worth of leadership gold that Ryan is going to give to you. And I encourage you guys, you can listen to it now. Hello, everyone. Super excited for my guest today. I have Ryan Hawk. He is the host of the Learning Leader Show. He has recorded probably more than 475 episodes over the past 7 years. Forbes called the Learning Leader Show the most dynamic leadership podcast around. Ryan is the author of Welcome to Management, How to Grow from Top Performer to Excellent Leader. Forbes called it the best leadership book of 2020. And Ryan's second book, which I can vouch to this, and the reason we have him on the podcast today, this is an amazing book, and I encourage everyone right now to go to Amazon and purchase this, is The Pursuit of Excellence, The Uncommon Behaviors of the World's Most Productive Achievers. Ryan, thank you for being on TCast. I appreciate it. It's amazing to have you on the show and looked up to you, listened to your podcast, so it's an honor today.
I really appreciate you having me, and thanks for all your support. That's why we do this, man. It's great.
That's awesome. I want to get into a tweet storm that you did on Twitter, and it's the 10 Commandments of Excellence. And I kind of want to, I know we don't have time to go through all 10, but I wanted to start on one where I'm hearing and seeing a lot, especially with leaders that we communicate with, is this stay at home, work from home. You have employees that are getting sideswiped with everything that's going on internally, in the home, but they don't want to go back to the office. So they're doing this hybrid model, and we work that way too. But you have on number 2 on these 10 Commandments of Excellence, you have a bias for action. We are who we are in practice, not in theory. Can you explain that a little bit? Have a bias for action?
When I think about the people who consistently add value to the lives of others, they certainly are thoughtful, but they're also very intentional with their behavior, and that those thoughts and that intention leads to action. A part of that tweet is in a world full of talkers, be a doer. I like to partner with people who get stuff done. I like to partner with people who do things. I've found that those who sustain excellence over time have a bias towards doing stuff, towards actually taking action instead of just thinking about it or talking about it, which is worse, but they actually do it. So if you're working on a book, you don't need to tell anybody you're working on a book unless you're interviewing them to be in the book. Just write the book. And then once you've written the book and the work is done, then yes, you have to talk about it because you got to market it. You got to sell it. So then you talk about it. But that's just one small example of something where it's just like, just do the thing instead of talking about doing the thing. Then once you've done it, talk about it all you want. I don't care. But to me, I really appreciate those who stick to doing it first, and then either they can talk about it later or others will talk about it and they can respond to it. That's just my preferred method of behaving, as well as I prefer to partner and work with others who are like that.
Yeah. How do you get out of this, have a bias for action? How do you get out of all the, I have a tendency to do this, and I know a lot of leaders do, where you're just researching. It's like you come up with the latest and greatest. I'm going to change my morning routine. I'm going to tweak it to this and this and this. And then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to change my schedule for this. And I had saw that you were talking about having Everest moments and changing, your summers and your winters. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But to have this bias for action, how do you get the momentum to go into that action instead of sitting there and just reading a ton of books on it, or sitting there and changing your systems all the time, but just doing it?
Well, we learn who we are in practice, not in theory, right? That's the Herminia Ibarra quote from that. So the only way to really learn is to do it. So I'm okay with having the mind. In fact, I would encourage people to having the mind of an experimenter. You're willing to run many experiments all the time, and you being the first person to try them on. So you mentioned morning routine. If you want to change something about it, well, then do it. Test it out for a week. See what happens. If you need to block time on your calendar to read, since most people struggle with that, well, the only way you'll know if that's beneficial is if you actually do it. So I think of life as running a series of experiments, and then afterwards doing a great after action review to see what works, what doesn't, what should I keep doing, what should I stop doing, and having that mindset. And so it doesn't mean the experiment's going to work. In fact, if they all work, you're not experimenting enough. So it's just really about having, again, a bias towards doing work, doing the thing, reviewing it afterwards, figuring out what's good for you. Because all of this stuff, all of these ideas, these things we learned in books and on podcasts and tweet storms, whatever it may be, it's for you to figure out what works best for you. There are best practices, and it's great to learn best practices, but really what you need to learn is what's the best practice for you. And I think the best way to do that is to try a lot of things, to go out and actually do it, and then analyze and think about what worked and what didn't. What should I keep doing? What should I stop doing?
I love that. And I think it's like you're saying, it just pushes you right into that. And I love the word that you use, bias. Because I mean, we look at that as being a negative word, but it's making that decision, just having that bias towards action. Like, I'm unsure, but let me just move into action.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when hiring in your role, don't you want someone who's going to get stuff done? I do. Right. I want people to get things done, and you don't get things done just thinking about it or just brainstorming. You have to do it, and then you learn through the action. So I'm okay with mistakes. I'm okay with failure. I'm okay with that happening. But I'd rather us. When I played football, our coach always said, if you're going to make a mistake, you make the mistake going 100 miles an hour, meaning going full speed. If you're going like 70%, you'll make a mistake all the time. And in football, you'll get hurt. So if you're going to make a mistake, go 100 miles an hour and do the thing wrong. I'd rather that than someone who's unsure, not really taking action and like that. There's no way for things to go well if that's your kind of consistent speed over time.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to get into number 4. And like I said, I encourage people, they can go and follow you on Twitter and see these 10 commandments of excellence. But number 4 is push your edges. Excellence happens as you expand your current zone of comfort and competency. Take the improv class, do the triathlon, push beyond your capabilities. That's where you grow. What do you, because I want to get into this a little bit deeper. Push your edges. What are you meaning when you say push?
Well, right now you have a current zone of competency and comfort. It's right here. So do I. It's right here. This is my sphere of comfort and competency. And I encourage people, and I try to do this, to push on those edges, to expand them outside of the screen, or to expand them a little bit every single day. And then watch the beauty of compounding take shape if you regularly have that in your mind. So I'm a big believer in prompts or questions to ask yourself at the end of each day. And one of those prompts could be, what did I do today to push my edges? Even if it's just a tiny bit, but what did I do today? What, did I go to the improv class? Did I train for the triathlon? Did I interview somebody who's far wiser than me, forcing me to level up when it comes to the questions I ask and how I listen and the follow-up questions? That's pushing my edges. That's forcing me to expand my zone of competency when I'm speaking with somebody like that. So if you have that simple prompt for yourself at the end of each day, what did I do today to push my edges? And you're able to answer it in the affirmative, as in you did something that pushed your edges, and you stack enough of those days, your sphere of comfort and competency will be far greater a month from now, a year from now. Think about that. If that's just a part of your default setting to ask yourself that question and to take action on that. And I think that's where growth happens. Like, we don't grow when we're completely comfortable. We grow when we're uncomfortable. We grow when we're doing things that maybe previously we weren't able to do. And you're also proving to yourself that you can then do those things by actually, again, taking action. So that's really what it means to push your edges. That's a prompt for me that I ask myself, and I encourage people to ask themselves and then say, wait, what am I doing to ensure that I'm pushing my edges. You may not bat 1,000 and do it every single day, but if you stack a lot of those days and you're consistent with doing it on a pretty regular basis, I think good things will happen for you.
I love this. And I used this the other day after I read this on my team. So not only I say I need to push my edges, but I need to push my team's edges.
Sure.
And so I had an employee. This is really interesting how your principle works. And I think this is an amazing principle. I knew she had a systems mindset. That's just the way that she operated. And I was like, I'm going to have her build a new system. And she stayed up 24 hours, almost 24 hours, and slacked me and said, this is the most alive I've ever been doing work. She goes, this is it. This is where I'm at. This is what I need to be doing. And I thought of it and I was like, I pushed her I pushed her to the edge. That's what she told me. She goes, I'm uncomfortable. What happens if I fail? And I was like, this is where I want to keep my employees at. Not all the time. I think there's some need for rest and all that. But I love what you're saying. Excellence happens when you expand.
Yeah. And I think I've learned as far as knowing when to push and when to maybe pull back, stress plus rest equals growth. It's just like lifting weights. I lift weights every morning and I know that I need to give my body time to rest and recuperate. That's actually, the muscles are torn and they're ripped up when I'm lifting. And then the rest, whether it's sleep or relaxation, is when the muscles actually grow. The same thing, I think, with our lives. So I think it's good to put ourselves in stressful situations, uncomfortable situations, but also giving yourself a chance to rest, because that's actually when the growth happens.
Yeah, I love that. And number 9 you had on here, you had lead with trust. You don't have to earn it, you have it. Now I want to stop there before we get into this a little bit more. You don't have to earn it, you have it. Explain the you have it part.
I trust you. I prefer to believe people, to trust them, to see others as being good and just. Some view that as having a Pollyanna lifestyle, or thinking that I haven't lived enough years to have been burned. When I meet with older mentors, they tell me those types of things. But when you lead with trust and you have a posture of trusting other people, it seems to attract the type of people that I want to hang out with. Because the people who don't lead with trust, the people who are skeptical or say you have to do all these steps to earn my trust, it seems like a bunch of liars getting together. And sometimes they are able to earn trust through doing things, but then they lose it. So I choose to have a forward-leaning posture of trusting people. And I'm willing to be burned every once in a while. I'm okay with that. That's part of it. I spoke with Jim Collins, and he wrote in his most recent book with Bill Lazier, his old mentor who passed away, that Bill said the same thing. He said, Jim, if you lead with trust, you'll find you'll end up being surrounded by the type of people that are trusting. And also, if you don't lead with trust, you will repel the trustworthy and high integrity people. I had a boss like this. I know exactly what this feels like. When he told me specifically, if you read Pursuit of Excellence, you know this story, when he told me I had not earned his trust and made me renege on an offer that I made in writing and my word to a candidate. And I said, you got to trust me. And he said, you haven't earned my trust. Well, what do you think's going to happen with a relationship like that, with a person like me and a person like that? Obviously, I'm leaving on the first day I'm contractually able to, which I did. So I think it serves you well, because you're going to start being kind of a magnetic force for the type of people you want to be with. And the ones that, again, and the opposite is also true. If you don't lead with trust, the high trusting people are not going to want to be with you. And those are the people that I want to be with. So I think you got to lead with it in order to get it.
Yeah, and this is something that I wanted to get in with you on this. I was in the Marine Corps, and I know you were in sports, and it's one of our mottos in the Marine Corps is earned, never given.
Yep.
So when you look at trust or look at respect, you always look at it in this risk assessment. I know a lot of leaders look at it this way. Let this person earn this before I give it. So what would you say to that? Like, in the sense of, if you're automatically, like you said, just automatically trusting someone,
right?
How do you that dichotomy? How do you work with that?
I'm okay with getting burned. That's the difference. When it comes to respect, you absolutely must earn respect, especially as a leader. That's what Welcome to Management is almost all about how you not only earn respect, but continue to earn respect, because compliance can be commanded. Commitment cannot. I have to earn your commitment. I have to earn that respect. So when it comes to respect, absolutely. When I was a freshman playing on the varsity team in the Centerville High School, of course I had to earn their respect. No doubt about it. I had to earn it by my play, by how I showed up in the huddle, by how I practiced, by how I prepared. All of that was earning the respect. So I'm with you 100%. I also know most people don't, when you talk about trust and it's earned, never given, I realize that that's not the norm, and I'm okay with that. But there are some others like that. Those are the people I want to be with. So I completely understand. But again, to me, the people who lead with it and who view the world as being surrounded by, if it's funny, you go online, and whether it's social media or a news station, and by the looks of it, you're like, oh my God, we're so divided and things are so terrible and it's so bad. But then you actually go to like a conference, or you travel and you go to a different city, or you just talk to regular people in the hotel bar in the lobby. Like, people are good. They're kind. Yes. They're giving. Even if we're different or we have different backgrounds and experiences, when you go out and actually talk to people, in my experience, it's so pleasant. People are kind. Like, they want to do well. The small minority of people who don't want that, they're just louder. And so that gets shown on the news, or that gets shown on certain parts of social media. But for the most part, I think you can trust people. I think people are good. I think they mean well. And the small percentage of people that can't, yeah, I'm going to get burned sometimes, and I'm okay with that. I do. I'm completely okay with that style, but that's how I prefer to approach it.
Yeah, and I had to really delve into this when I read this, because I was at first, when you hear it, you think no, as a leader, you're like, I'm not going to be that risky. And then I remember, especially with Jocko, decentralized leadership, and he talked about this over and over, Ben, just giving people the opportunity to succeed. And I think you're allowing, to me, and I want you to talk about this, but I think you're allowing somebody, when you're trusting them like this, because I have really been having to think about this, because you challenged me in this area. When you're giving trust automatically, what type of level, or if they're a good person, which you said majority of people are, what type of level of work are you going to get from them from that?
Think about a boss in your life, or a leader you're working for, and they trust you from day one. They inherently believe in you. They trust in you. They're giving you big assignments, or they believe that you're going to get it done. Aren't you going to be pretty motivated to want to keep that trust?
Yes,
I am. I want to prove them right. I think I'm so motivated to prove my supporters right. So when I get a believer, I get someone who trusts in me and believes in me, I'll do just about anything to continue to have that trust. Because I will tell you, when you lead with trust, the problems arise when somebody breaks it, because it's really hard when somebody breaks my trust, because I lead with it. So if you break it, and I have already given you the benefit of the doubt, I'll tell you, man, that's how some relationships are fractured and are really tough to repair, because that idea and that thought of I've already given it to you, and now when maybe you've been given the benefit of the doubt and you broke it, it's really hard to get it back. So to me, I think about from the other way. If I'm in the position and somebody else trusts me, I will do just about anything to keep it. And I think a lot of people are that way. I think most people are that way. Not everybody, but I think most people, if they're like, oh, wow, this is great, I appreciate this. Oh, I want to prove him right. I want to continue to have that level of trust. So I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do what I got to do to get it done. And I think that's how high functioning teams operate. I mean, the military might be different. I'd be curious, since I wasn't in the military, have the highest respect in the world for military. So thank you for your service. But I'd be curious if you've sensed that in your military days.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about that too. And the training, I think, leads to trust, because you have to trust people you've never seen before sometimes in certain situations. Yeah. So, and you're trusting people with your life. So, and it's the same analogies, and this, I mean, you played football at a high level, so you understand this. I mean, you may you're the training is what kind of builds the trust, if you know what I mean.
Sure. I think I think of my high school coaches who really have made as big of an impact on me as anybody in my life outside of my direct family. Most of them had a military background. And so they trained us as they're trained in the military, and knowing that one of the ways to build culture and to increase levels of trust is to do hard things together. You look to your left and you look to your right, and your brothers are doing really hard things together day after day. Obviously, the military, this is exactly what you guys do. I mean, you think of the Navy SEALs on the beach, all that stuff, right? And so that's how, like, I was brought up starting in the summer after my 8th grade year, every year, like year round, doing hard things with my friends, and that built these bonds for life. And then when it came game time, and for you, it would be like actual life and death, not for me, but game time, the lights are bright, all the people are there watching us. I really believed in my guys and our level of preparedness, because our coaching staff put us in these really challenging situations for months and months and months. And I could look at my guys and they were with me. They can make it through the hard stuff. And we did it together, so that when it became real, when it was live, I didn't have any doubt. I knew they were conditioned. I knew they were prepared. I knew they were ready. And I knew that I was too. And that's how we went from, a group of average athletes to win a bunch of games, especially against some teams we had no business beating, because of all of that work leading up to those big moments. And that's why, like our United States military, we all like rest easy. At least I think we do. I do, because of the fact we know how hard you guys train. We know how hard you work. We know how prepared you all are, so that if something bad happens, like, you got us. And so I think, to me, like, that's like all of that. You could parlay that into business, into life, into being a husband, into being a dad. All that stuff comes into play when you think about preparation and resilience and doing hard things together.
Yeah, and it reminded me of a book that I had read a while back, and so I'm going to pull it out again from my library, because Lead with Trust. I thought about this, and I want to see how it corresponds with this book. I think it was Franklin Covey's son, Stephen Covey. He wrote a book called The Speed of Trust. Yes, yep. Yeah, you know that. And I began to think about that. It's like, how fast can you operate when trust is there? So if you're immediately putting it out there, what type of speed are you gaining right off the bat? You know, without having to gain traction later. If you understand what I'm saying. You
mentioned General Stanley McChrystal before we were recording about your favorite episode, and General McChrystal told me when I recorded with him a few times that trust decreases transaction cost. Think about that. Trust decreases transaction cost. So whether you're on the battlefield or you're on the football field, or Warren Buffett is doing a handshake deal for a multi-billion-dollar company, which has been done, right, with a contract that's like a page, trust decreases transaction cost. So I just think that's imperative. Like it's that case in any relationship. If there's high trust, you can move faster. And so if I was building a team, I'm finding ways to continue to bump up trust. So you do things like vulnerability exercises, and you talk with each other, and you actually listen, and you get to know one another, so you can continue to increase those levels of trust from where you start. And that way, as you're working in a team and you're flowing, you're collaborating, you can go a lot faster than those ones who there's low levels of trust.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something that I'm going to start displaying in my leadership more. Just have it. Just bring it out there. You don't have to earn it. I'm just going to give you trust. I think that's something to.
The one thing is, and I've had to. This hurts at times. When I talk to, like, let's say a 60-year-old guy, and I bring this up, and they laugh at me. They laugh, and they'll say things like, "Just wait. Just wait. You'll get burned enough times to where you will not act like that." And I say, I guess maybe you know better than me because you've been around longer than me, but I hope not. I hope not. I hope not burned so many times that I stop feeling that way. Maybe I'll listen to this in 10 years and I'll say, wow, what an idiot he was. Like, maybe I will. I mean, I hope not, but there's a chance that could happen. I understand that. Like, I have the right to change my mind. But as of now, And Jim Collins is one of those guys at that age, and Bill Lazier was even older, and he was still saying it to his last days. So I'm hopeful that I can still be like that, but that's why I caution you. Like when you get burned, I think those are the moments where you're like, man, maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And to me, I think it's like getting through those times when you do get burned and still being okay with it.
Yeah, I think it eliminates regret too.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking of too. So you're just like, I gave 100% to this person. You just know when something fails and you've given 100%, you can feel good about the failure.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. Like you could, okay. Like again, I've never met someone who bats 1,000. It just doesn't happen. So in fact, like you shouldn't. That means you're not stretching enough. So yes, at times it's not going to work out. And that's okay. We learn from it and we move on.
Yeah, and I think this goes right into number 12 you had here. And this one could be a little controversial, and I love it, especially now, and especially with what we saw leadership going from 2019 to now, is number 12 is be the hero, not the victim. Take ownership of your success or failure. Don't blame others. Nobody wants to hang out with excuse makers or complainers. Can you go into be the hero, not the victim?
So that comes from Donald Miller. And he wrote a book called that, The Hero's Journey, or I forget the exact title, but Don's recent book is about that. He's a guy who's influenced me a lot. I'd say I've interviewed him a few times. I'm about to interview him in next month, in fact. So I think it's quite simple. Like I actually was on a Q&A recently about my book, and I got questioned about this. They said, well, what about like real victims, like victims of something really bad, like a sexual assault or something? I'm like, that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. Like there are real victims of things, and I completely understand that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking the everyday person who's going through life, and you know these people. You can picture them in the thought bubbles in your mind right now, where if something happens and it's a bit of adversity, it's not like they're not an actual victim of a crime or something like that, but it's a bit of adversity, and they immediately just complain and play the role of the victim. Versus the one who says, well, yes, this is how it goes. I'm going to find a way to get it done. And I'm going to learn while I'm doing it. Be the hero. How often are you excited to hang out with people who complain all the time?
Yes.
I'm not. Nobody is. Who wants to be around people who complain? Like, yes, there are times when we disagree. There are times when you need to come to me because I've messed up or there is something wrong. But just being the all day, everyday complainer versus the one who's trying to work through it. In every business, in every job you ever have, there will be stupid parts about it. There will be bad leaders. There will be parts of it that you just don't like. That's how the world works. And sometimes those are like, you see those more because they're like, wow, I can't believe that person has that job or whatever. Like that happens. But to be the one who just complains and plays the role of the victim when they're facing adversity, as opposed to the one who's going to fight through it, who's going to persevere, who's got some grit. I mean, this is actually one of the reasons I wasn't expecting to say this, but this is one of the reasons that I'm so attracted to my wife. She doesn't call herself a hero, but there's loads amount of adversity in her life from a very young age, till today, and never, ever, ever complains about it. Has an optimistic viewpoint, a smile, and is so gritty and tough and just gets it done. I mean, that's such an attractive quality in human. Like it's a magnetic force to want to be around people like that. So when I say be the hero, not the victim, again, this excludes actual victims of crimes. That's not what I'm talking about. Be the optimistic one who thinks and finds a way to get things done in the face of adversity, because every single person in the world faces tough moments, faces adversity. How are you going to respond? That's really going to determine the outcome. So that's what I mean by be the hero, not the victim.
Yeah, you mentioned Donald Miller, and we follow a lot of him, especially with StoryBrand.
Yeah,
and Sherpa, he uses the Sherpa model. Like be that person that you never see the Sherpa. He takes that. He's the person that has all the expertise, has humility behind the scenes, takes the picture of the person that's on Mount Everest with the flag. But without that person, you're not getting there.
Yeah, you be the guide. Yeah.
Yes. And so I when I read this, I thought of that instantly. Like the hero's journey. A lot of leaders, especially introverted leaders, they may not want to be they'll have the limelight, but they can be that expert, that Sherpa, that in those times, especially we saw starting in 2019 what happened. In those times of turmoil, you're the one that people look to be that rock, to be the one to take them up the mountain and guide them.
Yep, exactly. I'm a big fan of his work. I think he's not only a fantastic communicator and storyteller, but the depth of knowledge there is vast. So definitely a good person to listen to.
Yeah, I love that. And then number 15 is choose extra work. Now this one, this one flies, we have a tech company, and, there's a thing right now with tech companies, because employment is so well, that especially like coders, developers, stuff like that, they can get a job anywhere, so you kind of have this mentality. And a lot of leaders are facing this right now with employees, is they can go anywhere. They can, I saw Starbucks the other day was offering, like free drinks, free college, free food, make your own schedule. They had this on a big chalkboard, as you're going through the drive-through, so whenever you choose extra work, I think this is more important than it ever has been, because there's so few people that are doing this.
Right. So this comes from one of my friends, Brooke Cups, who's a state championship winning basketball coach, but also teaches a leadership class, and one of my guys I really look up to. In their basketball program, their values are tough, passionate, unified, and thankful. And the behavior that goes along with being passionate is choosing extra work. And I haven't met somebody who has sustained excellence over an extended period of time who doesn't choose extra work. The minimum is their table stakes. They just are. And everybody can do the minimum. But when I've done well in my athletic career, I chose a lot of extra work. And I remember vividly in my sales career, I got done playing football after playing in college and briefly in the Arena Football League after college. And I had to get a real job for the first time in my life. My life was sports, football, baseball, basketball, got a college scholarship to play football, and then played professionally after college for a little bit. So I didn't do anything else. I never had a real job. And I get a real job, and like a lot of former athletes, got a job in sales, telephonic sales at LexisNexis. Family friend and mentor of mine, Rex Caswell, hired me. And I had no idea what I was doing. I never sold a thing in my life. I had a bad feeling about sales, like most people do who don't work in sales. And I didn't even know where to start. But I was lucky to get some advice from a mentor and introduce me to other people who were performing at the top of the stack rankings in the company. And Rex had told me, hey, you should hang out with them. You should talk to them. You should interview them. You should be with them. And I met one in particular that has become a lifelong friend. He was actually in my wedding, and he agreed to come in with me every Saturday, and we would write scripts. We would write email templates that I could send out. We would practice actually saying what I was going to say as I was making my calls. And we go on every Saturday for a year for about 4 hours. On Saturday, this is before I had a family, right? And so I didn't have to do that, but I cared deeply about getting good at this job. I cared deeply about doing really well. I mean, I felt a little insecure because, again, I was hired by a family friend. I wasn't hired because of any reason that I was like good. Right? He was taking a chance on me. And I so badly, again, wanted to prove one of my supporters right, that I would do just about anything to succeed in that role. And so part of that was, yeah, hey man, will you come in on Saturday mornings and we can write and we can practice. And so that when it comes Monday, I'm not wasting any time. I am ready to go when I get there on Monday morning. Like, how people kind of mosey into their day and they're like, oh, let's figure things out. And before you know it, it's lunch and They haven't really done anything. Whereas I'm going to get stuff done before lunch on Monday, and I'm going to keep going after lunch on Monday, and I'm going to go. And then on Saturdays, we're coming in to do all the extra work. So I don't have any wasted admin time or prep time. That's all done. So when it's work time, when everyone else is just starting their day, I'm right in the middle. And to me, that was about passion. That was about wanting to be excellent at the job. And it stemmed partly out of fear of the fact that I probably wasn't going to be good if I didn't choose extra work. So again, I think those who sustain excellence over time have a passion and a love for it. And if you have a passion and a love for it, you're willing to choose extra work.
Yeah, when I read this one, I thought of this. You know, and we've all seen The Last Dance, and we know Michael Jordan. Everyone knows Michael Jordan, and you know, to the extent of the work that he did, the extra work. But I kind of want to take this in a different route. Why do you think it's praised to do so much work in sports, but in the business world, there's a work life balance and all these other things, and you're working too much, you're coming in too early? Why is it so encouraged? Like it's so admirable in sports, but then when it comes to business, you know, it's 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever it is.
That's a great point. That's a great point, man. Like I was like, yeah, that's a really good point. Now that I think about it, because you are like Tom Brady or whoever, like they are so praised, and actually, you're actually sometimes criticized if you don't do those
Yes,
things. If you
exactly.
don't show up early, if you don't like watch a million hours film. I mean, we see the Kyler Murray thing going on with not watching enough film, and it's in the contract, right? So I don't know. I think there's. I mean, I get the balance aspect of when you have a family, but
Mhm.
I think like especially those early years when you don't have all the responsibility of spouse and kids. Man, I mean, what else? Yeah, you got to have a social life, but whew, those are the years to really make hay. Those are the years to really get after it. But also thinking about like I believe more in work life integration and figuring out things. You talked about like you already mentioned kind of the video I just put out about wanting
Mhm.
to leave on hot summer days at 3:30 to throw my daughter Charlie in the pool. There's so much extra work done to prepare for that moment or those moments when I want to do that um, in order to like reshift my schedule. That's the work life integration. So because of that, well, when Charlie goes to bed, you can bet I'm going to be working. And when Charlie isn't awake the next morning, I'm going to be working. And on the weekend, when everybody's asleep, I'm going to be working. So it's figuring out what works best for you and how you can best get it done. But the work life balance thing, I think, I don't know, maybe there's some victim mentality there. I mean, people
Yes,
just
agreed.
people just don't necessarily want to work a lot. And in a way, like I sense you're the type of guy who may like that because, and I am too, because um, the kind of standard mode of work and the standard amount of work may be a lot more than most. And if that's the case, then that creates opportunity.
I also think, you know, like time management is so important. And I'm not talking like the structured way, but, you know, and you probably do the same thing. And I'm not encouraging I don't want to get too woo woo with this, but for me, it works best if I'm really flexible with my schedule, but I work 7 days a week.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
you know, I may take off an afternoon and go see Top Gun Maverick, you know, or go out to, you know, go out with my girlfriend, you know, on a date in the middle of the day, or go to Costco or whatever it may be. So I'm really flexible. I always make sure I take time every day to go to the gym, you know, so these are really important things to me.
Right.
And so it allows me to get a lot of work done if I do 7 days a week because I'm so passionate about my work. It's really rare that I'm feeling burned out or stressed. And I think that's where this comes in because when you look at sports, and you know this, how passionate were you? I mean, you would have done anything to be in that
Right.
position, and you did anything and everything to be in that position, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I do think it comes from in sports, it was absolutely that way. And so some of that is transferred into the work I do now. But I get it for some people that have a job and that job is just fine. Like it's a 5 or a 6 out of 10,
Yes.
right? It pays the bills, it helps support the family, and it's just fine. Where they can't wait till Friday happy hour or whatever. And so it doesn't sound like you have a job like that. I don't even have a job. I have a lot of work that I do, but I don't have a job anymore. I haven't in 5 years. It's just a lot of hard work to build this thing. And I love that work. But I do think that comes from a little bit of place of privilege. Now, a lot of hard work has led up to being able to create this, probably what you've created and what I have. So, but I do understand where not everybody has that. Like a
Right.
lot of people have a job that is not a bad job, but it's not an awesome job that you love. It's just good. And so if you have something that's just good, I kind of get why you want to hit your 40 hours, do what you got to do, make sure the boss is happy and kind of skedaddle. Like I kind of I kind of get it. I'm grateful that I don't have that, but I think most people do. I think that's what most people do, and so that's probably why most are that way.
Yeah, and I agree. But as your show is Learning Leader, you can get a library card and read books. The podcasts are free. You could do a second business if you have an internet connection, on your off times with something that you're passionate, that you love, even if it doesn't make very much money. And I know probably, for the first year or two, I don't know years, but I know a lot of podcasts, they don't make a lot of money in the first year or two. So, these things are I'm afraid sometimes we go back to, it's either an excuse or a victim mentality. I get the privilege part. Like, I understand that depending on where you're raised, the culture, we're in 222 countries, so, and we have a lot of people all across the world listen to this podcast. So I get that part, I mean, there's certain people that are in situations that, you're at a -10. So it takes a lot just to get to a 1.
Yep.
So I understand that. But for me, it's like taking self-responsibility, self-ownership, even in this position. What can I do? And we saw that over and over again with, these amazing writings and stories that came out of the concentration camps, and how these people were able to overcome something that would probably break you or me. We don't know until we're in that situation, but how they were able to, I mean, there's famous books about this, and I know about that. So I just encourage people, like you said, be the hero, not the victim, and choose extra work. I think every time you do that, you're going to win.
You're certainly, I believe, going to give yourself a better chance to win, however you define winning. And also, I think I view myself as like a product, and people, I want to give them a reason to choose to invest their most valuable resource with me, their time. And in order to do that, I have to be a value-added product. I have to add value to their lives. And so that takes a ton of work, a lot of preparation, a lot of the stuff done when people are sleeping, when they don't feel like it, when I'm alone sitting in an office and I can't think of the next paragraph, but I know I have to because I'm trying to write a good book. Like, all of that stuff that happens when nobody's watching, nobody sees it. But if I want to continue to be a value-added resource for other people so that they invest their most valuable resource in me, which is their time, I have to continue to get better and better and better so that my production is better and better and better. And that's just how I view it. Like, I don't ever feel like I deserve or have even earned you to listen to the next podcast or to read the next book. That has to continue to happen every single day. So whatever I'm doing, like, that is the forefront thought of my mind. And if I'm not doing that, like, I don't deserve anything. I don't deserve you to have me come speak at your company conference. I don't deserve for you to buy my books or to spend your time listening to my podcast. Like, I have to earn that part. You talk about earning it. I really think you have to earn that every single day. And a lot of that is done in the quiet hours when nobody sees, nobody's watching, but it's just you. And like, are you going to do all of the work to prepare? Are you going to really, really cut and edit that sentence or that paragraph to make it more readable and make it better for people who are consuming it? Those are things I think about a lot.
I love that. And I've got 3 more things that we'll go through quickly for sake of time. But you had something on your website I thought was interesting. You said observation and critical assessment of what is going on around you. It is a combination. And I just want you to talk about observation, critical assessment, and these combos. It is a combination of self-awareness, listening, and evaluating actions.
So what is that from?
It was from a letter that you wrote to a young lady that was asking you questions.
Really? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, what's the question, I guess?
Well, it's like whenever you look up critical assessment or observation, a lot of people don't take the time to be self-aware, especially as a leader, to take that time and say, okay, I'm going to be self-aware right now. I'm going to listen, and then I'm going to evaluate the actions, whether it's of other people or whatever it may be, a project. Yeah. So like developing self-awareness, listening, and I know you talk a lot about listening on your podcast, and evaluating actions, kind of those 3 things is kind of what I wanted you to elaborate on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I talked to Tasha Yerrick a lot about this. She wrote a book about self-awareness. I mean, everybody thinks they're highly self-aware, and almost everybody is not. So it's like 85-90% of people through these tests that she did through her research leading up to publishing her book. But so one, just being aware of your lack of awareness of self. So I just think it's for somebody in that letter I was writing to her. Haley was just starting her career and wrote me a long note, and I just decided to publish the email that I wrote her an email and just published it in my response to her. But it was really about you'll build a greater career if you're regularly willing to hold the mirror up close to your face and analyze you and be reflective and think about what you're doing well, what you're not, what you're unaware of, and then also having the spatial awareness for all of the people around you. I think that's something else that is a skill that needs to be developed. Seth Godin talks about being a professional noticer of things. I think those people who have really high levels of emotional intelligence and great storytellers and leaders that are visionary are probably good at noticing their surroundings, of being aware, of kind of being on the lookout for things. And to me, if you are certainly early in your career and you're developing those skills, you're going to be miles ahead of others who are going for these promotions or whatever it is that she wanted to build in her career. So to me, I think that's just kind of a posture, a way of being, a default setting that's the type of person you're going to be, instead of just kind of mindlessly wandering around the world and hoping for the best.
Yeah. And you said something in that letter too, and I love this. I printed it out and put it on my desk here. You said, run toward the chaos. and when I thought about that, I was like, so then of course, whether it's sports or military, whatever it may be, that's what we were taught, like you run towards the chaos. But then I see a lot of leadership now, and we've seen breakdowns and, huge events across the world where leaders want to play it safe, where they want to. I always loved, this is a funny example, but I always loved Star Trek, especially the old ones, because the captain was always the first off the ship, like he was the one that always went to the new world to explore. Captain Kirk was always that one, and I saw that a lot in leadership. And I know you've seen that a lot in sports, but like run towards the chaos. Like, so how opposite is that?
Well, I mean, at work, so this is again a letter written to somebody who's starting their career. At work, people run away from the hard projects. People sign up for the ones that they think will give them the most exposure and are not that hard. But the people who actually make it happen are the ones who sign up for the worst and hardest projects with no solution currently. Carly Fiorina is the one who gave me that phrase. And I asked her, how did you become the first CEO of a Fortune 50 company, first woman CEO of a Fortune 50 company? And she said, because I always ran towards the fire. Always.
That's good.
Because everyone else was running away from the fire and I would run towards it. And she's like, I'm not saying I solved it every time, but they knew I was willing to do it. And I proved enough over time, which was even harder for a woman, especially at her age and her career, because it was many years ago. I was willing to run towards it and work in that mess where everyone else was like, nah, I want to go do this project over here that I know I'm going to be able to do well and it's going to get exposure, versus the person who does that. So I was telling her, when you find the hard things that people either don't know the answers to or don't even want to try, do that. And if you become known as the person who regularly runs towards the fire and does the hard projects, that is how you build a career for yourself. You're doing the things that others aren't willing or can't do, and you're willing to do it. And then you think about this too. When you sign up for those projects and whatever they may be, when you go and do those, even if it doesn't perfectly succeed, I bet you're going to learn a lot. I bet you will. I bet there'll be a lot of learnings through that mess, through the tough things that you're going through. And again, you'll be making a name for yourself as someone who's not afraid to go do those things. So that's why I would encourage people to run towards the chaos, to the fire. I think it gives them a better shot of building a career over the long term.
Yeah. And last thing is, and this is a huge part of our culture at Tartle, we teach, learn, teach, learn, and that everyone can do that. And you had wrote this, you said, a big part of my work is teaching and helping others. In order to be a good teacher, you have to become a learning machine.
Yep.
And your podcast, The Learning Leader, so can you elaborate on how it has helped you specifically becoming a learning machine and how much joy you can get out of helping others?
I just think it's useful to oscillate back and forth between being in the learning mode and teaching mode. And think about, like, in your career as a leader, when you have to train somebody new or give a town hall about whatever, the process of you preparing to teach somebody else is one of the greatest learning tools in the world. You're going to want to do a good job. You're going to want to add value to that person's life. So you're going to do probably a lot of preparation. And you may even be like, oh, I didn't even realize I thought that. Like the prime example of this, I signed my first book deal, Welcome to Management, at the McGraw-Hill. And in the book proposal, you write your outline, you obviously have your marketing plan, and you write a couple sample chapters, but you don't write the full book. In fact, you write just a small portion of the book before you sell the publisher to give you a book advance. So then you sell it, they give you this advance, and all of a sudden you're supposed to be this management expert. And then you sit down to write the book, and you're like, wait a second, I don't know if I know what I'm talking about. And through the process of filling in that outline and retitling it and changing some things that I'd said earlier, there was so much learning happening. And that's what a book is. A book is ultimately a big teaching session where you're trying to teach one person, that one reader who's picking up that book. And so I just think I was regularly going back and forth between reading a ton and interviewing a lot of people and taking detailed notes, and then trying to take the best of the best and the most useful and taking it over here when I'm in teaching mode, whether I'm up on a stage, I'm on a podcast, or I'm writing a book. And so if you're in a leadership role, every leader I work with, whether it's one-on-one, leadership circles, leadership teams, I always push them to get up in front of their teams and teach something. Teach anything. I don't care what it is. What are you most curious about? I want my leaders that I'm working with, that I'm helping, that I'm advising, I want them up in front of their teams teaching something regularly. Have that. It's not just a once a year thing at the national meeting or whatever. Regularly be up teaching anything you want. I don't care. I just want them having to oscillate back and forth between learning and preparing and teaching, learning, preparing, and teaching. And if you're doing that, again, I think you'll look at what happens to you as a leader and your knowledge base and how good of a communicator you become and the things that you learn will dramatically go up. And by the way, it'll really impact your team in a positive way if you're doing a good job, if you're regularly doing that. So that's what I mean by kind of oscillating back and forth between being a learner and a teacher.
Amazing, Ryan. And you've given us a lot of gold nuggets and given your time to us today and shared so much. I encourage everyone to re-listen to this, whether you watch it on video or you listen to audio. And I also encourage you to get a notepad out and write these out. Since you've given so much to us today, we call our millions of users at Tartle data champions. How can we give back to you? What are some of the best things that we could do that would help you out?
I hope you like The Pursuit of Excellence, my most recent book. It's what you mentioned before. Check it out. And my podcast is called The Learning Leader Show. And obviously that's all free, but I realize it's not free because you're investing your time. But I do everything I can to prepare and publish good episodes of The Learning Leader Show. So I think, if you want to read The Pursuit of Excellence or listen to the Learning Leader Show, that would be cool.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it.